Alright, folks. RoboCop machine down. It's actually not that bad. We got what we need. Open the fucking door. Alright, my love. My Sophia. Italian name. Stand the fuck down. I don't want to kill you.
Why don't you just die?
Oh, come on. Seriously? She was too... That's it?
Get me out of here!
Oh, please. That was it? One shot? I get she wasn't wearing armor, but fuck. That was pathetic. One shot, one kill.
You don't know how glad I...
A brave new one!
You did the right thing. Akande was a monster. Her death was much deserved.
But she was beautiful. She was beautiful. She was young. She was innocent.
And you lunatic, you broke into the board's own fortress just to rescue one doddering old man. You are absolutely out of your mind. And I can't begin to thank you enough. I'm all right, thanks to you. Akande wanted my cooperation. I'm quite sure she would have beaten it out of me if you hadn't arrived.
All that just to shoot a woman once.
The board's stranglehold on this colony, and you saved my life. But there's still so much we have yet to... You and I are going to have to work harder than ever to save Halcyon. I'm afraid the situation is far worse than any of us ever anticipated. I would like nothing more than to celebrate this victory, but we have a serious problem on our hands.
Ah, boy.
Earth has gone dark. We haven't received a single message in 3 years. There's been no communication, no signals, nothing. 2 years ago, the Earth's Directorate's frigate disappeared on their way back to Earth. We don't know what they discovered when they arrived, or if they arrived at all.
So we've got to make do on our own. Seems to me that'll make us stronger in the end anyhow.
I love you.
You're quite right. We've got no choice but to make do on our own. We're in serious trouble, my friend. Do you know what this means for Halcyon? We can't rely on Earth for support anymore. We've been cut loose. We're entirely on our own. Yes, we do. You've done a marvelous thing. You've succeeded where anyone else would have failed, including me. We must begin the revival process immediately, starting with the Hope's brightest minds. And then we're going to fix this damn colony, one problem at a time.
That's why we did all this.
We're going to need a leader, and I can't imagine a better person for the job than you. What do you say, old friend? Will you help us?
Yeah, she's in charge, baby.
When I revived you, I thought you were going to help me save this colony. I was wrong.
I always said women should be in charge.
Roles reversed, you see. You're the one who's going to save us all. I'm just the one who set you on your path. You're the best thing to ever happen to Halcyon. If you want to take it upon yourself to lead this colony, you have my support.
As long as I have the support of my teammates.
Colony any longer, are we? Our last connection to Earth has been severed, and so we have been set free. Our future is uncertain, and no one knows what tomorrow holds.
Still the chairman standing there.
Isn't it?
Quite a lot of us, isn't it? Yeah, what about that guy?
The OSI teaches that everything in the universe happens according to the grand plan. But the stranger that arrived in Halcyon was an unplanned variable.
Oh, my Ada.
From the moment she landed in Emerald Vale, her actions altered the course of history. The events on Tartarus brought about the end of the board's authority. But the board's mistakes would haunt the colony for decades to come. The damage they left behind would require the work of a generation to repair. Dr. Phineas Wells began reviving a handful of the Hope's colonists: engineers, scientists, technicians, and intellectuals. They were among the brightest minds the Earth had ever sent out into the stars. The Hope scientists and engineers woke up in a colony descending headlong into total collapse.
Sounds like home.
To return to Earth, they had no choice but to band together and devote themselves to the cause of saving Halcyon. The people of Halcyon were nothing if not hardy. In the absence of the board's authority, many of the colony's settlements banded together with a single purpose in mind: survival. Life was especially hard in the years to come. Some towns dissolved by attrition and starvation, but most of them found a way to...
Well, all the dead bodies, can't you just grow crops?
In the years to come, Halcyon was forced to reckon with its newfound freedom. The board was gone, and for better or worse, the colony was responsible for its own destiny. Between MSI's workers and the iconoclast's manpower, Sanjar and Zora were able to rally many of the Terra 2 townships to their cause. MSI's workforce swelled, and the iconoclasts enjoyed a significant surge in their ranks. The board was too distracted by infighting and internal politics to stop MSI from becoming a powerful corporation and a refuge for townships that might have fallen through the cracks.
Through the cracks.
Adelaide McDevitt replaced Reed Thompson as the leader of Edgewater. She and her followers transformed Edgewater in their image. Anyone loyal to Reed was pressured into leaving town, and those who stayed behind adapted to her way of life. Adelaide transformed the old cannery into a new garden. The nearby Edgewater Cemetery provided a convenient source of fertilizer.
Sweet.
As for Reed Thompson, it was said that he lasted exactly 2 days outside the walls of Edgewater. Years later, a marauder was found in possession of his hat.
I thought I killed all the marauders, but that's pretty good.
Junlei Tennyson, the groundbreaker held firm against corporate influence. The ship's mechanical stability gave Junlei the time to educate a promising generation of engineers schooled in her family's traditions. The future of the groundbreaker looks promising. The rediscovery of the Hope and the abandonment of the lifetime employment program forced Byzantium to come to terms with some uncomfortable realities about the state of Halcyon. While Byzantines were reluctant to surrender the luxuries they'd grown accustomed to, the board's diminished authority gave them little choice in the matter. Nearly everyone had to learn to make do with less. Some even had to get jobs. It was a dark time indeed.
Oh, God.
Ellie savored her adventures on the Unreliable. Once they were done, she returned to life as usual, running missions of dubious legality.
She didn't make love to me.
Work, and living life to the fullest. She meant to reach out to her one-time captain, but she was always bad at keeping in touch.
I'd keep in touch with you, baby.
Life in Halcyon was sobering for Felix Millstone. The grand revolution he dreamed of never came. There was no great awakening for the colony, no celebrations in the streets. There was only the hard, desperate work of trying to repair a broken colony. Felix never had a head for numbers, but if there was labor to be done, he was there to help. Eventually, Felix realized that the work of a revolution was done with 2 hands. As much as he enjoyed his adventures aboard the Unreliable, the vicar, known as Max, eventually decided that it was time to move on, to live out the life he had sought so long to create. He knew there were many in the colony who carried burdens much worse than the
There's a lot of reading in there.
Struggled with, and he devoted himself to easing their suffering wherever he could. He only ever took up arms again to defend the defenseless, unshackled from a lifetime of striving and fighting the universe and himself. Vicar Maximilian de Soto.
And your mom was hot too, by the way.
Peace. Though Parvati eventually grew comfortable aboard the Unreliable, she never quite came out of her shell. She seemed to prefer the company of Ada to the crew, and she could often be found neck-deep in cables and grease, telling Ada funny stories from her childhood.
Hi, my Ada.
While the colony fell into chaos, she found an island of relative peace with Ada, and they formed an unusual bond. She decided to remain aboard the Unreliable permanently, as its chief.
I wonder what would have happened if I finished up the whole Jun Lei thing with her.
Nyoka returned to
There's my baby.
to take another crack at making a permanent life for herself. She formed the Charon Group, a mercenary outfit of ragtag survivalists and wilderness experts. Anyone in need of a guide, or just looking to throw back a beer and swap stories, could find her camping on the trail, or clearing an
If you're going to Earth, you could use your guide.
The SAM unit that accompanied
Yeah, Sam!
of the product line's superior sanitation and maintenance capabilities across what was left of the colony. This led to a boost in SAM unit sales. Did you know that SAM units are the longest-lasting, toughest-acting cleaning solution in Halcyon? Minister Clark was released from house arrest, and his contact with you gave him a sense of renewed purpose and vigor. Once it became clear that no help would be coming from Earth, he threw his considerable efforts and talents into helping Halcyon manage the crisis before it.
What happened to Earth, then?
As for Dr. Phineas Wells, he spent his remaining years in his orbital lab. He eventually came to terms with his own past, and was able to forgive the mistakes of his younger self by devoting his remaining years to serving the colony. Dr. Wells was able to revive many more scientists and engineers than he first expected, thanks to the additional batch of chemicals you stole from the ministry.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
Wells never forgot about the human lives that were lost in acquiring these chemicals. In the end, Dr. Wells was able to save every scientist and engineer aboard the Hope. Over the next decade, nearly all of the Hope's remaining colonists were successfully revived. Halcyon saw a period of rapid technological...
Can we get out of the whole 50s, 60s look?
Breakthroughs in dietary supplements saved the colony from starvation. Geoengineering projects and social reforms began to change the structure and character of the colony. Dr. Wells laid the groundwork for the project to save the colony, but he would never live to see the fruits of his labor. He passed away a few years later. His work was carried on by the scientists and engineers he revived. Today, Halcyon has stabilized. The people of the colony work hard to adapt.
Oh, we still have that 60s motif.
Nearby colonies send aid and supplies. Life will never be easy in Halcyon, but for the first time in its history, there exists a sense of real, genuine hope about the future. And what about you? The unplanned variable in the history of Halcyon. Long after Wells passed away, you carried on his work with more energy, determination, and brilliance than he could ever muster.
A lot of hard going on here,
Years
huh?
that followed were hard, but Halcyon survived by the efforts of the Hope's most promising colonists, the greatest of which was you. No one knows what's happened to Earth, and no one knows what the future has in store for Halcyon. All we know for certain is this: the name of the Unreliable and that of its intrepid captain will remain the subject of countless stories for years to come.
That just kept going on, didn't it? Well, that's it, folks. We made it through the Outer Worlds. And what did I think of this game? Well, I enjoyed it. Again, if I had more time with it distinctly, I probably would have had an easier time getting through it in terms of not losing my mind and finishing some side quests and everything that I wanted to. The only thing I have to say is they made it seem as though you had an option to do everything the way you wanted. I don't really notice that. I think in terms of being able to create a character that's just a big headbutting maniac that hits people with hammers and stuff, or being somebody that's a little bit more sly and a shooter type, I think that's more what they were referring to. But when it comes to solving problems, aside from a few persuade options, some of which towards the end of the game you had to focus all your level ups on specific hacks or persuasions or whatever, like lying or intimidating. There really wasn't any other way to do this other than shoot. Now, it's a first-person shooter, so you say, okay, shoot the shit out of stuff, but I just think that I was a little disappointed in the sense that I thought I had a lot more options than I actually did. Would I play through it again? Probably, I don't know. It depends. Games like this sort of go through that same tired, repetitive, shoot this, go there, shoot that type of thing. And once I get the resolution of certain side quests, I just sort of lose interest. But I mean, if you like role-playing games and you like first-person shooters, there's a lot more content in here than I thought there was. People made it seem as though the game was 10, 15 hours. We put about 30 hours in this game, and there was still stuff I could have done. So, I mean, if you really want to get a 50, 60-hour experience out of this, I would suggest speaking to everybody. I got all the crewmates that I'm aware of. I did pretty much everything. I brought peace and all that stuff, and I shot as many people as I possibly could, but the overall experience of the game, I didn't mind. I actually thought it was pretty good. I just would have preferred having the option to talk my way out of pretty much everything, with the only exceptions being a few psychotic idiots or some people that you could not reason with at any point. But other than that, it would have been nice to just be able to talk my way out of everything or hack my way through everything or whatever, and not have to lose so many resources just to pick locks and shit. But anyway, that's the end of that. So Outer Worlds was a decent game. I'm sure you would enjoy it if you are into first-person shooters or role-playing games. It's got a lot of content for you. It was enjoyable for me, and if we had another opportunity to play this a little bit deeper, it'd probably be a lot better. But other than that, not too bad, and I would definitely suggest playing this if you're bored, need something to do. But I thank you all for watching. I have more for you soon to come. Stay tuned, take care, and have a great day.